Hello, everyone. My name is Leona Hillson, and my presentation is titled Indigenous Displacement, Stolen Homeland. Today, I'll discuss how the indigenous population have been displaced throughout American history and continue to be displaced as the U.S. pushes the narrative of being a unified, protected homeland. I'll be using Amy Kaplan's ideas to explain how exclusion has been an integral part of the U.S.'s portrayal of homeland. I'll also discuss Philip J. Deloria's reading, Playing Indian, to show that although Indigenous presence is actively being erased, their image is still appropriated to strengthen the American identity. So, Amy Kaplan helps us see that homeland is not just a physical space, it is an emotional and symbolic representation of what it is to be a true American. After 9/11, Americans imagined the U.S. as a vulnerable but unified homeland that needed protection. But Kaplan urges that this vision is built on exclusion. To create the comforting story of a homeland, groups like the indigenous peoples had to be marginalized and pushed out. I thought this was interesting considering that the place Americans refer to as home was never truly theirs to begin with. So I wanted to explore the original inhabitants of the land, the indigenous people, and explain how they have been pushed out of what they know as their true homeland. The exclusion of the indigenous people can be linked to the beginning of U.S. history. An early example of this is the Indian Removal Act of 1830, which forced entire tribes like the Cherokee, the Creek, and the Seminole off of their ancestral lands where they were for generations. We refer to this event as the Trail of Tears, as it led to a series of marches where thousands of indigenous people suffered from starvation and disease. It marks one of the earliest systematic attempts from the U.S. to erase the native people's presence from the land to claim it as a part of their own homeland. Another example of this is the Dawes Act of 1887, which broke up communal lands and sold surplus native land to white settlers, further reducing native land holdings by millions. This act was framed as a way to help natives by encouraging them to adopt Euro American ways of living. However, it was really a way to erase native land bases and open up the American homeland for white expansion. In Playing Indian, Philip J. Deloria talks about white Americans stealing Native identities to define themselves. We see examples of this when we think about the Sons of Liberty who dressed as Indians at the Boston Tea Party, or how Boy Scouts are often populated by white youth who imitate the way natives dressed and their ceremonies as well. Deloria touches on how playing Indian allowed white Americans to feel more connected to a land that they stole. It allowed them to take on the title of being natives, although they were pushing the original people away. The indigenous people were physically and systematically displaced, but their images were used to form a new American identity. So, this pattern of displacement and erasure isn't just historical, it still continues today. An example of this is the Standing Rock Sioux tribe resistance to the Dakota Access Pipeline in 2016. The Standing Rock Sioux tribe actively protested against a pipeline being built on reservation land. The pipeline would disturb sacred burial sites and the tribe's water source. When indigenous activists referred to as water protectors peacefully protested this, they were met with militarized police and violent suppression. This included rubber bullets, water cannons, and massive arrests. To justify the creation of the pipeline, it was said that it was protecting national energy security at the expense of indigenous lives. The resistance from the natives was also used to frame them as dangerous, unpatriotic, and terrorists. Although the Obama administration briefly halted the project due to all the intense backlash, construction quickly resumed under the Trump administration with full federal backing. This just goes to show that the U.S. still treats the indigenous people as outsiders within their own homelands. It also echoes the tactics that have been used to historically displace natives in the past. The American homeland was and is still built on the removal of indigenous people, the appropriation of their identities. And Kaplan forces us to see that the United States idea of homeland is built on excluding those who are separate from the white and pure American identity. It is a homeland built using erasure and control. American culture often plays Indian to claim an authentic connection to the land while continuing to deny Indigenous rights and displace their communities. Thank you.